Well, I was trying to send two ways. My phone said they will. Look at you, you eat no better.
No, you're right.
You're still here.
Yeah.
See, someone was working, you dirty.
Good evening, everyone. It's officially 7 p.m. I'll call the 2021 continuation meeting of the Princeton Township to order. I'm pleased to see that everyone is practicing social distancing, although you'd be just fine if you wanted to move up a little. I think we've had enough, we've done okay with agenda and minutes, but we get many more people and we might have to share some of this. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'd ask you to please stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In case you don't know, my name is Doug Dahl, and I'm the clerk of Princeton Township and also the treasurer. So it's my job to convene the meeting, and then we will turn it over to our moderator. If you have the agenda in front of you, get down to where it says other township business. That's where we'll provide the opportunity for people to speak in an open format. But at the present time, I would like to entertain a motion to appoint a moderator.
Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Stokel?
I move to appoint Dan Whitcomb as moderator for this meeting.
Very well. Mr. Stokel has moved to appoint Dan Whitcomb as moderator. Do we have a second?
I second that motion.
Motion seconded by
Joel Minks.
Joel Minks. Okay. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I will call the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Whitcomb.
Good late afternoon. My name's Dan Wickham, if you haven't met me before. I live just south of the school property in Princeton Township. We have the agenda in front of us. We need to go through it, or you can read it. Thank you. The agenda will be conducted in this order then. We're going to approve the minutes first, then approve the 2020 financial report, and then appoint everyone their own pound master, fire contract report, review annexation of Marshall property, road report and board, budget discussion, 2022 budget proposal discussion, approve 2022 levy, any other township business that the members of the township want to bring forward. And then we finished all that, we'll adjourn and recess the meeting. So, starting with approved minutes of the 2020 annual meeting. The minutes were on the table over here if you didn't get one. You can go up there now and get a copy of the minutes, it's quite long. And review those minutes, and we'll have, how much time do you want to review these minutes? 5? How fast can everybody read? Let's go 5 minutes to review these on your own, and then I'll come back and ask if anybody needs some more time. If there's anything in the minutes that you find while you're reading and you want clarification, just raise your hand and I'll recognize you and we'll try to clarify it. Oh, all right. I need a secretary. I'm going to point that out, secretary. You'll be taking the minutes from this meeting. I want to thank Nancy Moen for putting these minutes together from last year. It was a long meeting, and I know she took a lot of hours going through and doing that for us. Thank you very much, Nancy.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
Thomas Newton, I would move to approve the minutes of the annual meeting.
All right, a motion's been made to approve the minutes of the annual meeting. Is there a second to that? Gene?
Gene Stokel will second motion.
Okay, motion's been seconded. Any discussion or comments or clarifications for the meeting minutes? Hearing none, I ask for a vote of approval. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, nay. Okay, pass. Next is, we need to present the financial report, or approve the financial report? Yes.
Yeah, failed to mention this, it's my fault. I have 2 binders on the table for you to review the financial report. And if anybody wants to see that binder, raise your hand, I'll start passing them around here. A lot of pages, and I didn't know how many to print, so. Anyone else?
Is there a summary available?
Yeah, there's a summary document.
Huh?
There are summary document.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Both binders the same?
Pardon me?
Are both binders the same?
Yes.
Those that haven't reviewed it, I'm just going to give you the numbers on the first page. Beginning balance of our, of all accounts is $666,690.05. Total receipts for the year were $784,895.96. Sales and investments, none. Transfers in, zero. Disbursements were $1,005,003.61. Purchase of investments, $2,949.79. Transfers out, zero. Ending balance, which is, I guess those are the accounts, $443,634.61. Investment balance is $108,767.32 for a total balance, and this is the year-end balance? Yeah. $552,401.93. And then the individual, behind that are the individual accounts, general fund, road fund, etc. The funds in the account are the general fund, road and bridge fund, federal programs, park dedication fund, escrow launch, Pine Plantation, Richard Ryman escrow, Silver Lake Pine escrow, North Oaks escrow, Silver Lake Oaks escrow, Gave Addition escrow, Parasol escrow, Unberg escrow, EMK Properties escrow, Studebaker escrow, Silver Lake Oaks seal code, and coronavirus relief fund. So all the different accounts. Anybody need any more time to review? If not, I need a motion to approve the financial report. Yes.
Carolyn, I make a motion to approve it.
Carolyn makes a motion to approve the financial report. There's a second.
I'll second it.
Carol Wickham seconds. Any discussion? Financial report? Any questions? Hearing no questions or discussion, ask for a vote to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, nay. The motion passed. Next on the agenda is appoint everyone their own pound master. This is where you're responsible for the pets and all animals on your property and to control them so they don't go onto other people's property and cause problems. Need a motion to appoint everyone their own pound master.
I make a motion that we appoint everyone their own pound master. That's Joel Minks.
Joe Meeks makes a motion. Any second to that?
I second. Still a second.
All right. Kathy Stokel seconds it. Any discussion? Any questions? Not ask the, take a vote on approving that everyone be their own plow master. All those say aye.
Aye.
All those against, nay. Carry pass. Okay, next is just a fire contract report discussion. Who's?
Mr. Moderator?
All right. Yep.
Could I get you to move to the next item on the agenda? The assistant chief is running a little late tonight. There's a scheduled training for us in the fire department. He'll be here in the next 10-15 minutes.
Okay, we'll put that further down on the agenda. We'll move on to review annexation of Marshall's property of the city of Princeton. Who's going to address or talk about that? Gene Stokel?
Yeah, in April, a notice was put out from, public notice from Baldwin Township. It says, I can read exactly, it says, public notice of hearing and intent for the annexation of certain land to the city of Princeton from Baldwin Township. And then pursuant to statute 414.033 subdivision 2.3, public notice is hereby given pursuant to Minnesota statutes that the city of Princeton proposes to adopt an ordinance annexing property to the city of Princeton that is currently lying in the township of Princeton. So the heading was wrong. I called Donna Jensen the day that this notice came out, and she didn't seem to think that was any problem. I never saw any more notices. When it came time for that to be acted upon, by that time I had already talked to our township attorney, also the airport engineering team. Jason Hill, our township attorney, found that the land had already been purchased by the city of Princeton and taken off our township tax rolls. This precluded our township from collecting any loss of revenue and also took it out of play. Airport engineers found that height restrictions and so on will not affect the airport. I believe the industrial development plan will be presented at the next city planning commission meeting. And there really, according to our attorney, there was nothing we could do about it because it had already been purchased by the city. So the people that bought it from the previous owner sold it to the city and bypassed the township's right to deal with it.
Index and annexation. Any questions on that?
Mr. Stokel, what was the loss of revenue to the township? What would it benefiting on from the whole process? Do you know?
The city has an ordinance where they would pay 50%, 40%, 30%, 20%, 10% to the township for annexation rights for the next 6 years. But because it already got taken off our tax rolls, we lost that. It would end up being about $800. So it wasn't worth hiring our attorney to go back after the city. It would have just been an expense for the attorney.
Thank you.
Is there, you probably don't know if there's any past assessments on the property that would be with the township?
Pardon?
You don't know if there's any past assessments that were due on the property from Princeton Township?
Not that I have heard of.
Next on the agenda is a road report and road budget discussion. I assume that Bill's going to do that.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. It's a nice night. Make sure this gets on.
Check. Okay, good. Some of these slides that you're seeing tonight are some of the same ones that were shared last year. We've discovered more information that we'd like to get out to everybody, and some of the accomplishments that we've done in the township. And with that, we'll just kind of move right into it. And we're going to be sharing these every year that I'm road manager, just to try to drill home the importance and what the township is for. Townships are responsible for roads, and it is their primary function. Our goals are to develop and approve a comprehensive plan for all roads in the township and implement that plan. To determine priorities based on data and facts, address needs and assure due diligence and fiscal responsibility for the township residents. Those two items to the right come from the 2019 Manual on Town Government, Minnesota Townships. 15-1 is the town authority. Town boards are the road authorities for the township roads. That's according to Minnesota statute 160.02 subdivision 25. And 15-14, towns are expected to maintain and improve their roads. Princeton Township Comprehensive Plan, Road Maintenance Plan. This presentation will focus on what we've accomplished, what historical issues we've faced, what we need to do moving forward. And the primary focused areas are gravel road maintenance, paved road maintenance, snow removal, mowing and brushing removal, safety and signage, and a comprehensive budget plan. Princeton Township's comprehensive road maintenance plan, the goal is, again, is to provide the goal is to prolong the life of all the roads, working to assure accurate information for all township roads. One bullet point here is to develop the data and facts based on a matrix to assist decisions. Develop and follow a graveling and grading shaping plan. Develop a crack fill and seal plan, chip and seal plan. Develop snow removal management plan. Clearly establish responsibilities and supporting documentation. And establish specific detailed information to support township budgeting to meet required responsibilities and to contain costs. So in 2021, some of our accomplishments you'll see there, as we approved a comprehensive road plan for all the township roads. We improved the township road map accuracy. When I first started, I was handed a map and said, here's a map of the roads, and it was missing about 3 miles of roads. There was a little short segment that I was told was our road, but it really wasn't. So we cleaned that up. In 2020, we had completed a crack fill and chip seal for about 3.75 miles of the paved roads. 21, we just finished this up last week. We had a crack fill on about 2.19 miles and a chip seal for 1.66 miles of those roads that were crack filled. In both 20 and 21, we applied approximately 3,000 cubic yards of gravel for both of those years. And so far, we've completed over 10 miles of brushing and spot brushing. We're also looking to improve the planning and compiling and tracking of all the data. You'll be seeing that at the end, how I'm tracking the gravel that's being placed and where we're grading the roads and those types of things. We're also improving we've also initiated a dust control for the higher use gravel roads. And I'd mentioned earlier about a matrix that we've used to set up and how to determine which roads get dust control. So we've implemented that. And we also developed and approved a signing policy. So for the 21 signing policy implementation project, what we did is we had compiled an accurate inventory of the township signs. We clarified that of the 295 signs, 130 of them were actually county signs. Then of that remaining 165 signs, it was reduced down to 111 by working with the township engineer to eliminate any unnecessary signage and other unnecessary or illegal road signs, which there were a few illegal road signs out there. This will help to provide more accurate information when planning future replacement per regulatory guidelines and the adopted policy. Road maintenance recommendations, key steps that we are working towards. Can everybody see that okay? It's a little smaller text. Enhance communication to residents to help everyone understand their responsibilities and action plan to be addressed. We're working towards getting that information posted and share the information so that residents, again, are informed. Establish clear shared responsibility agreements with all bordering cities and township governments. That's something we're hoping to finish up here by the next July meeting. We had a few of the town road agreements that were set up, the town line roads with other townships, but I think the last time that they were looked at was like 1989, I believe. It's been a long time. We're also developing a priority scale for both paved, gravel and paved roads. Prioritize and act based on facts and data, and we're going to follow the best practices and updated methods. Reduce, eliminate both over-maintenance and under-maintenance for each type of road surface. We'll eliminate neglect for paved roads, which adds to cost, and I'll be getting to that a little bit more later on here. We'd also like to assure a long-range budget, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight, is the budget and the levy to address the township responsibilities to maintain all roads and a regular program for maintenance as required by Minnesota statutes. 2021, so here's the facts. We did not raise the township levy or taxes in 20 or 21. Actually, again, I'll be getting to that a little bit more also later here. We have reduced costs and implemented cost-effective methodologies to provide professional services for our township. We are continuing to restructure our spending to bring it more in line with the average of the township spending allocations in other parts of the state. The township is not a bank. It's here to provide services and to maintain and improve the roads. So this was the 2021 budget levy. It was $340,195. Our general fund levy was 29%, which was $100,000. Our fire levy was about 17% at $78,000, and that was a little bit high. We'll show you that corrected number later. Road and bridge fund levy is about 54% at $182,000. There was no levy increase, only reallocations. And what I mean by reallocations is by this next slide here. This graph here, figure 8, is actually from the state auditor's report. It provides a comparison of the present and total expenditures allocated to general government, fire, and road and bridge spending during the years of 2015 through 19. So what you see there is this, can you see that? Does the pointer show up on the screen? No, okay. So that top arrow at 60%, that's, if you look at the bottom, you got the road and bridge down here. So this denotes the top line, the blue denotes, of course, the 20% line, and the fire's on the red. So this is what generally across the state, according to the state auditor's report, shows. And what we had been doing, you'll see in 2018 there, our general fund was about 46% instead of 20 or 18 where it should be. Our road and bridge was at 41% instead of 65%. So we had things kind of reversed for many, many years. And those are some of the things that we've done over the last 2 years to restructure and take advantage of the levy that we're receiving and reallocating them to appropriate areas. Again, this is from the most recent report of 2019. This is a 10-year trends. Figure 9 shows the change in total expenditures, and now this is a statewide graph. It's for dollars in 2010 through 2019. So between 2010 and 19, total town expenditures in actual dollars increased 33.7%. A constant or inflation adjusted dollars, total town expenditures increased 10%. So you'll see that a lot of the towns have been keeping up with inflation, and as I'll explain in a little bit, we are very far behind as a township. So these are some of the new slides that we kind of come up with here over the last several months, as I'll explain here. Areas of concerns that needed to be addressed as the new road plan was developed and the budgeting was adjusted. There were extreme misrepresentations about gravel and road repair costs. The board of 2014 through 18 asked for limited input from the township engineer on important and necessary road decisions. There was a negative bias towards paved roads from a majority of the board for those years from 13 to 18. Most of the board members at that time did not live on township roads, they lived on county roads. There was a severe lack of funding and concern for all township roads. Almost all road reports and annual meetings mentioned only graveling and brushing. These were some of the misrepresentations from 15 to 18. Our accounting system, CTAS, has separate accounts for gravel roads and paved roads, but there was an account that was created where it was all just dumped into one. So in 15, 16, and 17, they had a budget of $10,000 for gravel. In 18, it was $30,000. It was reported to the taxpayers and the residents that $65,000 was spent on gravel. I asked for a download of all the data from CTAS, and I think it was May or June of 2019, and started analyzing everything. Things didn't seem quite right, so I actually went to the supplier and asked him for all the invoices. The actual gravel invoices were $214,195, not the $65,000 that was reported. The actual amount spent on road repair was only $43,702 out of the $440,000 budget. The extra gravel costs were shifted into road repair to make it appear that all roads were being maintained. I've got a detailed, again, I had, I think, 2 presentations on this during our monthly meetings. So those are, I believe they're posted out on our website. Another thing we wanted to be sure that people were understanding is the cost comparison for gravel versus bituminous pavement. As traffic levels increase to a threshold of about 100 vehicles per day, which we call, you see at the bottom there, the ADT, average daily traffic, road maintenance costs are much higher than pavement if you're utilizing gravel. So that circled area indicates that going into pavement will cost less than maintaining gravel at the higher rates. So what I had done in late 19 and a lot of 20 is the board had agreed that it would be a good idea to get traffic counts. So I went out and did traffic counts on about 36 or 38 different locations in the township to get traffic counts so that we can start doing what I mentioned earlier, which is basing our decisions on data, not our feeling and what our gut was telling us. So now we have that information. One other thing that I really feel that I need to give you a little context as to what was more recently discovered and why the township is in the financial situation it's in. Maybe all of you don't know this yet, but I'll be getting to kind of where we need to be here. But here are some of the excerpts from the April 6th special meeting that we had. The meeting minutes can be reviewed at the township website again. So we've got some historical clips from past annual meetings about the roads. From March 2007, Greg Anderson gave a brief road report. He explained that the township had completed 40th Street. He also stated that they would be pulling in the reins this year and only doing what's necessary to catch up on the budget. So that was in 2007. In March of 2016, Greg Anderson gave a road report and explained that there was some brushing and graveling done throughout the year. Roxbury had asked the clerk how long it had been since the township had raised the levy. The clerk stated that she thought it had been about 10 years since they increased the levy. In 2017, Greg Anderson gave another road report and explained that there was some brushing and graveling done throughout the year. John Roxbury Jr. also wanted to mention that the township had not raised the levy in 9 years. So they found out that it had been 9. So that takes you back to 2008 since the levy had been raised. And then in 2018, again, Greg Anderson gave a road report for the past year. So our township is still at the same levy all these years later, and now we're in 2021. Reading from the minutes, there was an intentional neglect with a plan to return paved roads in the township housing developments to gravel. The dirty little secret is that even with all roads were gravel, our current levy would not support those required costs. The more traffic, the more expense there is. to maintain that. And there's there's a much higher ADT in some of the residential areas. So keep in mind that these next two statements are coming from two supervisors who did not live on township roads. They live on county roads. So this is from October 15th. Again, these are all, the reason I came upon these is because we now posted all the minutes on the website so that we could all actually read them and find out what's been the history of what's been going on. So we've got them posted on the website back to 2013, I believe. So in 2015, Mr. Riverblood stated that the township engineer presented the board with a plan for road maintenance, and every year there were projects that needed to be done, mostly in residential areas. In 3 years, the board has not raised the levy. The board was informed that the average price to maintain these roads was just over $382,000, even though the road budget was only $110,000. This is one of the reasons that led to this discussion, and there was other discussion there, but this was pertaining to the roads. Two things about this comment I'd like to mention. To make a statement that the maintenance needed to be done is mostly on residential roads is not true, or it's intentionally misleading. In fact, a majority of the paved roads in the township are minor collector roads and not even in the developments. The residential areas only account for about 30% of our paved roads. Otherwise, a majority, 64% of the roads, are on non-residential collector roads or commercial. Some may be in residentially zoned areas, but they are not residential per se. Also, at that time, it had been at least 7 to 9 years, which I just read earlier, that they had not raised the levy, not 3. As I read earlier, okay, so I covered that. So that very same meeting, Jim Cussler stated that it's a constant struggle with funding in order to just maintain all the blacktop roads that are already in the township. He stated that the gravel roads are easy to maintain, however, the paved roads are extremely difficult to fund without raising the level of levy to serve a few developments that are existing. He stated that there is no way they will even be able to keep up with those roads. Mr. Cussler in that same meeting there, he contradicts Mr. Riverblood's claims by saying to serve a few developments that are existing, it's either there's a few developments or it's most of the residential. It can't be both. But I think we can, and we've already made some great strides in maintaining the paved roads as well as the gravel roads. We just need to continue moving forward with the plan that I've laid out as a road manager, with also from input from the town board and the township engineer. To further point out that a known funding and levy deficit was happening, we can look at meeting minutes from May of 2013, where Greg Anderson asked Todd McLeod, who was our township engineer, what's the correct procedure for putting some money aside for major road projects in the future. Todd stated that the township would need to raise their road levy. Again, for the record, the levy did not change and has not in the last 13 years. As you can see, the board had known about this change for years and did absolutely nothing about it, except to allow the township to get further and further behind every year for 13 years. This is a huge disservice to the township. The average board meeting lasted 35 minutes in 2013, 37 minutes in 2014, 43 minutes in 2015. These times are similar for 2016 through 18. I don't recall reading any substantial discussion in the minutes about adjusting the budget or levy to cover the obvious need to maintain the township road infrastructure. After finding much of this information in the posting meetings in the township website, amongst some other findings, I made a call to the township engineer asking him what the background was on the situation. He conveyed to me that on an afternoon late in 2014 or early 2015, he was called by the chairman at the time and was essentially told that the board had decided to take a position of don't call us, we'll call you. Therefore, due to those instructions expressed by the previous board, there has been very little communication or documentation about the road since 2014 between the township and the township engineer. We've now lost an additional 7 years since 2014 to fund and maintain our transportation infrastructure, an infrastructure that the taxpayers have already invested in. So what we have now is a multifaceted problem created by the way the township had been run for many years. There was a serious lack of foresight and intentional negligence for assuring that the fiscal responsibilities of our township roads. At the end of that meeting, back in April 6th, of that special meeting presentation, there was a statement made by our current chair that pointed out the intentions of the past board. And again, I'm only going back to 2013 because that's the only minutes I've been able to review. Was neglect to the township's development. Intentions of the past board was to neglect the township development paved roads to the point they could just be reclaimed and turned back to gravel. Multiple people validated hearing that being stated publicly at several meetings over the years. It was agreed that those statements were made but never documented in the minutes. It certainly appears that both the actions and inactions taken by the historical board are setting this up to occur. So this was a chart that I was first made aware of probably in late 19, early 20. And this is where I first noticed something was kind of amiss. You can't really see it there, but there was where that heavy black dark line is. That's 17, 16, 15, 14. So from 14 on, there's no data there. There's a little bit over there, and that's information that I put in looking at those receipts that I talked about, where I found out that there was some patching and things like that happening. But from 2014, this was a document that the engineer had taken, was making sure that he was doing a great job of documenting what's happening in the township. So from 2014 on, essentially nothing was documented. I shouldn't say that. It's not that nothing was documented, it just wasn't being run through the engineer, and things weren't really being put on maps and tracked like they used to be. So this graph from 14 was presented to the township back in 2014 by the township engineer. Unfortunately, 5 years later, in 2019, the new board members discovered that a large portion, over 90% of the township paved roads that were required to be paved, had not been routinely maintained in the history of the roads. This was neglect of a responsibility for which residents were paying taxes for. And you'll see this in a few spots here, but there's normally a chip seal or a crack fill every 5 to 7 years, and it's just to help to maintain the road and the longevity of it. So this next slide is where we kind of took over here, and you'll see in 2020, we started taking care of things in the far right column there. Everything in the red is basically that's where the 20-year time would come in. And usually around 20 to 26 years, you'll want to do an overlay of some sort. That hasn't happened. So what we're trying to do right at this point is just get some crack filling done and some chip sealing to help to extend the life of the roads until we get a handle on the levee and how we're going to handle this. So by the end of next year, if we stay on the plan, we will be almost 93% back on track, at least for some of the minimal maintenance. But we really can't undo the damage that's already been done. We've lost extended life on our roads. It is important to know that it is more costly to repair neglected roads than to maintain them. This is the pavement condition index and cost. I'm just about finished here. So either way, there's a cost to maintain roads. It applies to both gravel and the paved roads. So if you pay a smaller cost now, you see in that upper arrow, you'd spend $1 here in preventative maintenance, or we pay a lot more if you choose to neglect. Down in the red arrow down at the bottom, you'll see it's going to cost a lot more to fix the road. And this next one is just the traditional versus optimal life cycle. The chart shows that routinely maintaining a paved road will make it last much longer than just neglecting it. So if you follow that blue line, every time you see a little blip in there, that's a seal coat or some crack filling or those types of things, and then an overlay. But if we do not do that, we're going to incur expensive costs like the direction the township is headed. So that's where that red line is. We need to have a good road plan to maintain all the roads in a fiscally responsible way. It's no different than a home. if it needs maintenance. If you neglect a roof that's leaking, it's going to be far more expensive to deal with it in the long-term damage due to the neglect. But again, the good news is that we can responsibly maintain and extend the life of our township roads with a good road plan. One of the other things that was mentioned earlier in the meeting minutes, paid road maintenance costs versus taxes paid, truth versus misinformation. The goal is to prolong the life of the roads. So that number one, let's set the record straight on getting information right. And you guys might be a little surprised by this. It just seemed like there was a lot of pitting residents against each other. You know, your area costs more than our area. This is so-and-so's road. This is so-and-so's road. But as there's a developer here, I think that there's a few people who have developed in the area. Developers pay to have the roads paved. That's not something that the township does. They also put an escrow at the township for the first seal coat. So we've basically got 13 years before the township has any expense in a newly paved road in a development, or for any road for that matter, unless it's one that the township is paying to have done. After that is done, all those escrows are incurred, and there's other things that take place with the developer's agreement. It then becomes the township's responsibility to maintain those roads. So I actually went out and did an analysis because I was just bored one night asking my wife. And I took an analysis on several hundred homes and several different portions of road within the township. So if you have 22 homes on a half-mile stretch of road and they pay $523 each in taxes, that's a combined total of $11,506 annually. After 7 years, those homes would have paid a little over $80,000. Now, if you maintain the cost for crack filling, chip sealing in the pavement, that's about $10,300. If you carry this out to the minimum life expectancy of 45 years, these homes will more than pay for the cost of maintaining their paved roads. So you'll see that maintenance is based on the CF and CS as a crack fill and chip seal. So if you have a crack fill chip seal at 5 years, 12 years, 19, 31, 38 years, with an overlay at 26, and the reclaim and pave at the end at the 45 years, your total cost for maintenance is $295,000. Well, we've brought in $517,000 with that tax base. So the township has an additional $222,000. So for some of those comments that were made that the residential areas cost more is just flat out not true. There seems like there's been a lot of misinformation that's been perpetuated. You know, you can dislike developments or even at a fairly low density that the taxes will pay for the roads. Remember, it's the township's responsibility to maintain and improve all roads. So this is the end of the presentation, but every year, I laid it out last year about the gravel we talked more about. We're doing this in thirds. We're doing the southeast corner, the north half this year. Next year is the southwest corner. And then every year we've got our contractor, they give me a map every time they go out and grade. It's a colored map. They show me where they went, and you can't see it, but it's basically, this is showing every time, every road that they've hit. And one thing I want to mention is we have, as I mentioned, we have incorporated dust control, and these areas that we're getting hit by the grader 10 to 12 to 15 times, I think we're down to 2 times they've been graded. And by doing the dust control, we also keep those fines in the road bed, and we're not having to spend as much on gravel. This was the planning budget for 2021, and 2022 is what we went over, and that's what's going to be proposed tonight with the budget and levy. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. Appreciate it. If you have any questions afterwards or anything like that, please come see me. There's other information here that we can get you if you have any more questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Did I see the fire marshal come in?
Assistant chief, yes. he's
Assistant
here.
chief?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go back to the agenda then. And get
So was there a
Yes.
discussion, or was it just the presentation?
That was just, this was just a presentation, let's see. Road report and road budget discussion. You have a question?
Oh, I thought it says we're gonna discuss it.
Okay. Any questions
All
on
I
the budget
got was
report? Yes, go ahead. You have a question?
Well, we got one guy's view of what's happening in the township and what needs to happen in the township.
Yeah, I recognize you, so go
What's
ahead.
that?
Go ahead and speak to the road.
I feel like there's, the township's been responsible in saving money, let's use it on the roads. And you've said yourself in your presentation that you had a tax base that would pay for it. So is that on the proposed tax base that will pay for it? Is that the old tax base that will pay for it, $523 per home? I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
What's your question exactly?
We're discussing. I thought that's what it was.
Well, I think the question is on the tax base that you projected on your presentation, that, is that based on the existing tax base or future tax base levies? The 593 that you estimated per home?
Oh, that 523? No, that was on existing. That was on a 2019 or 2020.
So we're good. It covers the cost, so why do we need to raise it? So you just.
So what I'm saying is that there has been nothing done in 14 years with the roads.
What you are saying is $523 will give you $517,000 to maintain that stretch of road. It's only going to cost you $295. Why do you need to raise the levy?
That's one section. That's a
Fine,
half mile
let's
section.
talk about the other section.
Okay.
Can I?
Sure.
We're looking at one section. You're looking at one development is increasing or bringing that much extra money into the township. The non-developed parts of the township are depleting that.
At a lower cost per mile.
That's not true.
Well, some of them do, some of them don't. Yes, the county line road over there, we all know that it's deep, it gets whatever it needs work, and it doesn't see the traffic that other stuff will. But you've done all the counts, and they can be fooled too. Let's not kid ourselves. I mean, you can drive over the counter as many times as you'd like.
Is that what you were doing?
I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Whoever, just because we've got a counter out there, that doesn't say everything there is to say. Sure, somebody says that's the thing to do, but it's not the gospel truth.
What would you propose?
I would propose to spend the money that we have and not raise the levy.
Do you know what the levy is?
It's in the proposed levy.
Do you know what it is? Do you know what it is? This is
I have to
discussion.
look. It's you're asking for what? $200,000 more? $400,000 more?
No.
What are you asking for?
Well, I'm asking you. This is the discussion you were.
Yeah. Okay.
So what's the current levy?
The current levy is on your website, and your current budget is on your website, and the proposed levy.
Do you know what our current
budget is there?
Do you know what our current needs are?
You just laid out that you need more money, and there is money in an account according to the accounting I just looked at. Use it.
We are.
So far, the levy was
340,000.
40,000 was the same as last year. They haven't based levy what they're.
What are they proposing for 2022? That's what we're here. That's what the whole meeting's about, right?
Well, that's the next step.
Well, but this whole presentation is about why we need to do it. That's his presentation, why we need to do it. Correct me if I'm wrong. This whole thing was basically belittling people for saving money and that we need to maintain our roads because they're all falling apart because we have no money.
I don't think he was
true.
belittling people for saving money. I think he was pointing out that what was happening in the last 14 years was that responsibility of the township supervisors to maintain and improve roads, that mission, which is assigned by the state of Minnesota, was not being done. The money was being banked, yes, although we still have questions about where all that gravel money went to. But at least I do as a citizen.
$600,000 gravel, nobody
So, I mean, that's,
Should be
I think the
all-
argument is-
Yeah, money. We're not gonna.
we haven't, all the government units around us have increased their levy for some reason.
So-
We haven't to maintain our roads. Now we're in a deficit road maintenance wise, and we may have to raise our levy to catch up. But
So
they're
everybody-
assessing it, that's what I hear, they're assessing how much they might have to raise that levy. Yes, Joel?
I guess one thing that was a little unclear to me, you said if you collected $525 tax per house. Now, that isn't specifically all road. I mean, there's other township expenses that come out of that, right?
Right.
So you still have to pay your government operation, your fire. So I mean, that $520 just doesn't go to roads, it goes everywhere. And I would guess normally, everything goes up every year. Your fuel, your heating oil goes up, everything goes up. So if you don't increase your levy, that $525 gets eaten away, not just by roads, but the operation of the township. Would that be correct to assume?
Well, the other part of that too, though, is, you know, again, I was looking at one specific section of road, which is resident, and I mentioned that only 36% of the paved roads are residential. The rest of them are, like you mentioned, 50th Avenue. That doesn't take in even close to what it needs to pay for itself. Right here, back in 2015, just for the paved portion, the engineer had said that we need over $382,000 for the road budget. And our road budget was $110,000. And we've been going backwards since 2008.
Roads, but now they're gonna save.
Yes. Okay, explain this to me. If you have a mortgage and your mortgage is $2,000.
I don't.
I don't care. The point is if anybody has a mortgage of $1,000, and instead of paying $1,000, they're gonna only pay $800. Well, guess what? Hey, I'm gonna put this $200 into a savings account. And then next month they do the same thing. And instead of making their mortgage, now every month they're behind $200, $400, $800, $1,600. That's what's happened.
Well, that's what you lay out.
That's what happened.
Well, I respectfully disagree.
Show me what happened then.
You have accounts that have money in them. Instead of raising the levy, use it to maintain your roads.
I just explained that. We're behind. We've been behind.
You're spending some of the savings. I get it.
No. Look, see this chart here?
Yeah.
They were told back in 2014 that these roads, from the engineer, needed to be maintained. They did not maintain them.
Okay. You can hire people to say whatever you want.
But we'll listen to you though instead.
No, I'm saying we need a discussion.
Are you a township
I'll answer
resident?
that
I'm
discussion.
a township taxpayer.
Are you a resident of this township?
No. Am I not allowed to speak in a meeting?
I didn't say that. I'm asking you if you're a township
No, I'm
resident.
a taxpayer. I
Okay.
own property, probably as big a piece of property as most people in this room in tax base in this township. And so I care about the roads too. We operate business.
Okay, just,
So
if
let's,
you were out watching them repair 33rd or 82nd Street and pave it, which Greg Andrews said was Dan Wicken's $1 million road, and it was never $1 million, never even came close. They had to dig up almost I think it was like 500 feet of that road because there was no road bed underneath it. It wasn't even a trail road. That dirt had to be dug up down to 6 feet deep, and the bed had to be reestablished before they could even tar it. That's the kind of roads that we had in a development. And those are the higher end homes over here. There's 33 of them that are paying significant amount of tax dollars into this township. We're getting zero services for 14 years. Because we had a supervisor who wanted to scare people off, said, well, we're going to go back to, we want to maintain gravel roads because they're cheaper. The buses were sinking in that road. They couldn't get through on a wet year. I had the same problem when I was county commissioner on the county roads around here. We sank how many buses and how many trucks and tractors into the roads on the wet years because they had no bed underneath them. I gave orders to the county engineer at that time and said, I don't care what you do, but these roads have to be passable, minimally passable on a wet year. And they had started digging them out, and they started putting road beds underneath them, and they started shoring up those roads because the county wasn't doing their job at the time. We couldn't get gas. We couldn't even get gas to people's houses because the roads were so soft. People were without gas
Well,
to heat their homes.
I can't dispute that. I wasn't there to witness it, so I believe you. But what I'm trying to say is you've got X amount in the savings account and you're asking for more in the.
Do you know what that amount is?
Well, your books show it, what,
$500,000
$500,000 and $100,000.
Do you know how much it's gonna cost to get the roads up to where they need to be?
You're gonna increase.
I've been explaining that
Yes,
tonight.
I understand that you need more money, but are you going to take, what are you asking for in this year in increase? Is it more than the savings account has in it?
No.
Are you afraid to deplete the
What do we
savings
have,
account to
Gene?
zero? Is that gonna make us look bad?
No,
Use
no,
all of our money on the road this year?
That would be irresponsible.
No, we don't do that. We're not gonna do that.
Okay, so how many years could we get out of our savings account before we increase the limit?
This
How much should
isn't,
there be in the savings
this
account?
isn't a one-year process. This is a multi-year process. We've
I'm
gone
asking.
14 years behind.
I'm asking what the, I'm asking.
Gene,
what
what is it? I think we're at, go ahead.
In the CD, we have $108,000.
108,
108. So you have
108,000.
a third of a year of road maintenance, right?
Yeah.
Well, what's your annual budget?
Last year we spent 585,000.
585.
And you have about 550,000 balance, which is about 1 year. Normally, they recommend 1 to 1.5 year savings, in case of emergency in a budget for either a county or town or city. Right now, you're basically at a 1 year budget savings.
Who recommends that? The state?
State auditor.
So
If I can add something, the township board goes on a road tour, and we went into Mr. Pines and all the different developments. Every place we went into, we're looking at alligator cracks all over the place. We've done some chip sealing, we've done some crack filling, we've done a little bit of overlay, but we need to catch up on the last 14 years of doing nothing. And what's in the budget, what's in the reserve is not enough. We're not asking for millions of dollars, we're asking for, and I can give you some numbers if you wish to listen. Since 2009, we've had zero increase in real estate tax levy to our township residents. In that time, the estimated market value, what our real estate taxes are based on, have gone from $175,452,000 to $257,288,000. And just since 1 year ago, our estimated market value, which is what your taxes are based on, increased 10.86%. If you look at your real estate tax bill, you will see that the township percent of your taxes have decreased from about 17% to less than 13%. So if your real estate taxes are $3,000, your township share of that is about $400. If we increase the levy by 1%, which is about what we're proposing, 1% over the 10% natural growth, you're looking at about 33 cents a month increase your taxes. Just be looking at the increase, every 3% over 10% increase would be about $1 a month. We're only looking at the 10% increase in basically increased market value or estimated market value plus 1%. So it's about 33 cents a month is what you're going to see in your tax bill. Last year, your tax bill went down
Significantly.
probably $6, $8, $10, $12, whatever. It's not a very significant amount. What we are proposing for next year would not even bring it back to the 2019 tax bill. So it's not like we're asking for the world.
I think this discussion is the next agenda item. However, I'd like to discontinue the discussion and ask for the fire report. And then we'll go into the budget. Come on. I know you put your Sunday best on today, so I think you come up with.
Josh, did you have any of those, did you have those numbers from our meeting in February? Okay, I do somewhere here. Hang on just a minute. Try to listen to that fit in there. Sorry, I thought I had it here. Go ahead.
Well, my name is Josh Shakiri. I'm the Assistant Chief for the Princeton Fire Department. Ron asked me to come down here and meet with you guys, see if there was any questions I could field, or if there's any concerns at all about any of the services being provided or budgets or anything like that. I guess it was just kind of looking for an open forum for people to ask questions or air concerns and anything.
Well, I'll start off with one question, because last year, I think it was, or the year before that, you reported that somebody asked a question about the number of accidents in 169 in Princeton Township to the north. Now, the State Highway Department has done some structural modifications on the intersections up there. Have we seen a decrease in the number of highway accidents on 169?
Significantly lower numbers of accidents with injuries, especially serious injuries or death. We've only had a couple of accidents that I can, maybe 4 I think this year that we've had, where and with minor injuries. We haven't had any major accidents like we used to have. So I was a little skeptical at first, like for a lot of people, because I wasn't familiar with those J-turns, but seem to be working.
Is this mic on? I don't think your mic's on.
I think it is.
Oh,
Hello?
okay, here we are.
All right, sorry. But what I was saying was that I do feel the J-turns have significantly made the highway safer in the crossings. I can only think of about 4 minor injury accidents that we've had this year through that stretch. Previous years we had a lot more accidents with more significant injuries and fatalities.
Does that coincide with like all the Highway 65 incidences? Has that been a lot of J-turns there? I mean, statewide, comparing us to the overall state J-turns.
I haven't seen any data from the state comparing stretches of roads or intersections. I can only go off of what I've personally seen in our area.
Here you go, Josh. I got some numbers for Princeton Township. If you'd like to be put up there, you can see them or you can read them off. Good works from the 33 too. Okay.
So this is a breakdown of all the calls that we ran in your township in 2020. A total of 77 calls. There's a complete breakdown of every type of call. I personally enter every one of our run reports into the state web base. And so that way, by having one person enter all of the runs, we make sure that everything is entered consistently. So we had 2 building fires, 7 grass fires, 3 EMS calls. Those 3 calls exclude vehicle accidents with injuries. 33 medical assists, 3 motor vehicle accidents with injuries. Most from what I can recall, most of those were pretty significant injuries. And then 6 motor vehicle accidents with no injuries. All the rest of them are onesie, twosies. The bulk of the calls that we run in Princeton Township are medical assist. Those, basically we do is we show up, package the patient or put them on a stretcher and load them in the ambulance for the ambulance crew. That's about all we do on those. The EMS calls, excluding vehicle accident, line 3 there's 3 of those. Those are also medical calls that we get, that we respond to, but there's only 3 times out of the 36 medical calls that we've had where we actually control bleeding, did CPR, perform some sort of care to the person. So what Chief Lawrence and I have been discussing and discussing with some of the other, or with all of the other townships in the city, we're going to try to work on trying to lower our overall number of calls that we're running to. So that 33 calls that you see there, let's say we could cut that in half. That's going to eventually that's going to start to lower the cost of fire protection because it's based off of tax capacity and usage.
And how do you cut that in half?
We have a new dispatch director up for Mille Lacs County. To this point, we are running almost anything that we get in the township, especially if the cops aren't going or something like that. So if one is not feeling well, or one with a migraine, or something along those lines where it's not an actual life emergency, we can train the dispatchers in Mille Lacs County to not page us for those types of calls.
What's the percentage of chemical or drug calls of those numbers?
Of those numbers, I would say none of those would be in the 33, because those 33 calls, we go to your house, we help you onto the cot for the ambulance, and then we load you in the ambulance. That is all we do.
So
If there was a overdose or something like that, that would be in the EMS call on line 3, where there was 3 of that nature of call. I don't know what those 3 calls were specifically, but it was where we actually administered patient care.
I'd like to know who's going to be doing those assists. I know a lot of people have used your service for that. So what is the dispatcher, what are they going to tell them when they need help?
Well, the ambulances, that's my personal opinion. I feel like the deputies in the ambulance, they should be going to these calls and helping to lift somebody back into their bed or whatever to help load this patient for the ambulance. Again, that's my personal opinion. Their ambulance and police deputies, that's their full-time job. We're volunteers. So we're all leaving work or punching a time clock to clock out to help, which we don't mind doing at all. But when the sheriff deputies get the same call for medical assist, a lot of the deputies are taken under advisement and not even responding.
Is it possible to get a volunteer group that comes in and does some of these medical assists instead of taking our valuable multifaceted people?
There has been some talk about trying to have basically a crew that would be on call during the day that would respond to medicals. The problem therein lies that Now you're taking somebody and designating, you know, say 8 hours a day, and if you have a 3-person crew, you have to pay them. So now we have to make sure that we can eliminate enough calls to actually afford to pay them, or we won't have anybody that's willing to do that.
Which is why I commented about volunteers in the community.
It's something we could look into, definitely. The biggest hurdle there would be the paging system and then being able to get a hold of everybody to respond.
Everybody has a phone, I know my firefighters rely on their phones.
Yeah. Yeah, phones and pagers are exactly what we rely on. It's something I could discuss with the chief and see if there would be
Have a
a,
new source you didn't know you had.
yeah,
I think this is a good community that would respond well.
yep, I'll mention that to Ron and we can discuss that further.
Any questions for the chief? Any big budget concerns coming up?
Not really any concerns I can think of other than our call volume has been so high that obviously eats into the budget more than what you plan for due to vehicle maintenance and fuel costs and, you know, protective equipment, because, you know, we require, if we enter a house for any type of a medical assist or a medical, we do require our members to wear gloves and masks and all that kind of stuff, so, you know, and now we have the jumpsuits, so, you know, just the continued expense of everything going up with all the calls.
There's no questions, I guess, finished.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Next on the agenda then is 2022 budget proposal discussion. Who's addressing that? You two? Who's going to talk about the budget? Local? Gene Stokel? Come up. And proposal and discussion.
Gee, did you want me to hit on kind of some of the effect also with the fire budget and kind of what happened with that? Because it's part of the levy and part of the budget. This is one of the other things that we had kind of come across, the long-term effect of the fire contract levy. So again, by not raising the levy or keeping up with even inflation, the average over the last 14 years has been an average increase of $970. You know, it looks as though that's a $15,520 difference disparity, but the actual compounded effect on something like that over 15 years, 14 years is $101,000. So again, by not keeping up with inflation on that type of thing, that's an increase of 1.65 annually. Now, again, this is just one budget example. So just keep that in mind. Another thing that we had kind of pulled together here just to help people understand about what happens. I mentioned about a mortgage. If you miss a monthly payment on your mortgage, well, next month now you've got 2 months worth of mortgage payments plus interest, and that's all compounding. So if you look at on the right-hand side there, again, we're looking at just $1 a year. That looks like we're only behind $14, but in actuality, that's compounded. You lost a year, you got to catch up, and then the following year you got to catch up again. So it's not a $14 loss. We're looking at $105,000 just on $1. And then one final one that kind of covers, I shared this with Gene earlier a little bit, is it's hard to see here because when I switch out of the presentation view, I can't get a signal. So this is kind of what we're left with here. So understanding a levy is a piece of cake. Not really. Like it's kind of a little in there. So if you have so if this is the actual size of your sheet cake that we're talking about here, and you've got 100 people or 100 homes at $1,000 levy for this, we'll just say this sheet of cake. That's $10 per person, or $10 per household. So there's a difference here between growth adjustment and versus inflation adjustment. We've got inflation, we're all having to deal with inflation, but there's also that growth adjustment. The CAPE represents that growth adjustment. So if we have, what we've had over the years is that we've had growth in the township. So $1,000 levy, now if we have 200 homes versus 100 homes, well, now that's only $5 per person. That looks great because everybody's cost is going down, but that's actually also a negative because now we only have $5 to maintain roads that are getting more use. So according to the US inflation calculator, that's the stuff in the red here, and according to MAT, the Minnesota Association of Townships, we've lost over 25% of our buying power since 2008. And again, that's not the growth adjustment. The only real increase that we're looking at that we need to take care of is that inflation. So, and this is what Gene was trying to explain a little bit earlier, that that if the township levy portion of your taxes, everybody know if you're looking at your township, your tax statement, there's actually just a levy portion of for the township. The average is right around $350 per household. If we were to just increase the inflation side of that, that's about 88 cents a month or $10.50 a year. So the one thing that we have had some growth in the township over the last 14 years, and the funding potential has been lost over the 14 years because of this aspect of the budgeting seems as though it had not been addressed over the past recent boards. So we've lost that. So if you keep the levy at the $10 like you have in the upper piece of sheet cake, you keep that same tax base and you spread that over the 200 new homes, everybody's still paying the $10, but now we've doubled our levy just by doing that. And again, that's what we've not done. We have not kept up with that. Roads have not gotten cheaper, they've gotten more expensive. And I said it earlier, and I'll say it again, we're going to continue on the discussion of the road budget, but this was from 2014. Our estimated road maintenance cost was going to be $382,545. We have done nothing with the paved roads since that time. Now it's kind of in 2018, they were told it's going to be $420,000. Again, our road budget is only $110. We've readjusted that stuff. So as you're looking at this, down at the lower portion, these numbers look a little different, and that's just because in 26 years you have to do different things. In 26 years you're going to have to do more chip sealing because you're covering a longer period of time. But had we just maintained the roads as we were supposed to, our road budget should have only had to be for the paved roads $213,848. So hopefully what I'm trying to get across here is that by the neglect and letting it go as long as it has, now we're at the point where it's basically double what it could have been back in 2008 if we had just maintained them, did an overlay 10 years ago on a section of road, 11 years ago did an overlay, and we would have kept up with it. But now it's all come to a head, and we've got to take care of it all in the next 10 years, otherwise we're going to be falling apart. I don't know, was there something else you wanted to talk about with the budget?
Just those numbers.
Yeah, the mic.
I think everybody can hear me, I got a big voice. For the last 14 years, our levy has been $340,195. And that has not changed in 14 years. In 2009, the total estimated market value of our township was $175 million. Today it's $257,000, I believe was the last number I saw. That's about a 50% increase without changing our levy. If I went back to my own personal income tax or real estate tax in 2012, I was paying 17% of my real estate tax was going to the township. Now it's less than, it's about 12.5% or 12.4%. Our proposal, and I don't have it as a slide, but our general revenue fund levy proposal is $60,000. That would be 15.7% of our budget. Our fire protection levy, we know that is $56,750. That's 14.8%. Our road and bridge fund levy, $265,000, and that would be 69%. Our total net tax capacity levy is $381,750. That's a $41,000 increase. I said before, the 10% inflation or expansion, that leaves us about 1.2% for going back and recouping that what we've lost over the last 14 years. So we're still way in better value than we were 14 years ago, 12 years ago, or 6 years ago. But our total levy, tax capacity levy we're proposing is $381,750. And for 14 years, it was $340,195. And I got to know that number very well. Any questions?
Okay, so then, per household, what is the percentage we're looking at for an increase? Yeah.
Well, it's again, it's not, it's because we've added all these homes over the last several years.
Right.
We're really not expecting any
In the old
increase.
days when we talked about, what was it called?
What was the mill rate?
So
No,
mill rate.
there's not gonna be any increase because of the development that has taken place in the township? Is that what
There
you're
should
saying?
be no increase in your real estate taxes. Back in the old days, the mill rate used to be set. It's probably going to be less this year than next year, even though we're raising the tax levy by 11%.
Okay, so then my next,
But then again, we don't know what the county is doing how they're assessing you, so we have no control over that.
right, but I'm just asking specifically for the township. But because we are in, for want of a better word, a road deficit, right, in repairs, right? Because we're still trying to catch up. Does that make sense for us? Should we really be looking at some kind of a percentage, and maybe just a little bit, so that we can get to that 100%?
Part of what we have been able to do is adjust from giving so much money to governments because we were paying a huge amount to the township office. We also were paying a lot of money for maintenance of our equipment. If we look back and Bill had the numbers.
Yeah, and I know you've readjusted and you've done a lot of really good things, but what I'm saying is, because our roads, because they've been neglected for so long, would it not make sense just to increase just a little bit to get to where we need to get those roads fixed? So that next year, they're not that much worse.
I believe our road.
Do you understand my
I'm sorry,
question?
I think so. Our road plan that we've devised, that Bill has worked so hard on,
Yeah,
basically is giving us a plan for the next 4 years or whatever.
right,
that we're
but
going
the
to be-
slide said we were still only at 83%.
But this year we're doing a second bit of crack sealing and crack filling. Next year we do the last portion of it. Then we will have about 4 years before we have to go back and start the cycle again. And then we can start putting, obviously we lost some when we lost our local road improvement project on 50th. But now we have to readjust where we're going, so we can't fix 40th and Baptist Church Road, but we have to re-aim our goal back to 50th. But the way our plan is, by 2 years, 3 years from now, we should be pretty well caught up. But now we have to maintain.
Okay, but
as
you're
our
saying
engineer
2 or
says,
3 years.
380,000.
Why are we waiting? Why not just do it just a little bit and try and get that sooner?
I think it's a little more palatable to look at an 11% increase than a 20% increase. And especially there are people that were hurt by the COVID and the restrictions and so on. This is kind of what we came up with on as a goal for the next 3 to 5 years. Now, this year we're really going to skimp on the general fund. Next year we'll probably have to put the general fund a little bit heavier again. But we're really trying to balance, because like you said, the ban, or we're not a ban. When we had almost $1 million.
Right, no, I understand that. You're not supposed to be saving. You're supposed to be using it to take care of our roads. That's what your job is. But what if something happens? Let's say, I don't know, some kind of an emergency. Are we gonna get caught short? I'm just,
We still have some.
I'm just asking some basic.
No, we still have some built in.
Okay.
We probably don't have a year and a half built in, but we have, I would say we have probably a solid year's worth.
Now, she mentioned COVID, with COVID, do we have any idea of residential or commercial fallout from any foreclosures that's going to affect the township? Anybody that's, got any numbers on anything that's dropped because of COVID?
I think only the fact that some people left their jobs or lost their jobs because of it.
But as far as their homes and their business properties, is there anything you know about what's not in your tax allotment here because they left the foreclosures?
That would be up to the assessor's office.
Property is selling very quickly.
Yeah, that's a little tough question of whether people will go in foreclosure or not. Just taxes are still due, even in foreclosure, they don't get abated. They just get collected with property sold or auctioned or whatever, so.
It gets deferred, so
It
you
gets
set
deferred,
that.
and my understanding of the state, you're actually taxing a little bit more than what the levy is by them to cover that for a short period of time. But people have 5 years to catch up to those taxes. I mean,
And we can maintain that 5-year catch-up?
well, we can, we have a credit that goes with our, in a major disaster like that, usually what the states do is they give money back to townships and cities to cover that general funds. It's hard to say until it happens, but then we do. Proposed budget, or what we need to approve tonight is the levy. On this budget, the levy is going to be, got it up here, $381,750. That's an increase of $41,555 from last year's, this year's levy. That is 11, I calculated out for those who want numbers, 11.7% increase. And that, I mean, if it was spread out evenly among all the property owners, you'd see 11.7% increase. I mean, like my taxes this year for the township are around $400, so I would see $40 more, but $45 less. But it's not that, it's not spread out evenly. Commercial properties pay more than, because their market values are higher. If you have a higher market value house, you're going to get hit a little bit higher than if you have a low market value house.
That's not a true indication because
No, it's not a true
the increase in the estimated market value is the township went up.
Right. The township value went up significantly. A lot more homes were built, so probably would not have that big impact. So that's,
And that percentage is only on the township portion of it. It's only on the
Right.
300, not your whole tax
not
statement.
your whole tax statement, correct. So, I need a motion, we're at that point, to approve the 2022 levy. I need a motion to approve a levy of $381,750 for 2022. So moved. Your name? Jesse Bartle. J.C. Bartle makes the motion. Any second?
Sarah Lund, second.
Sarah Lund, second. Any discussion? No discussion. I will ask roll. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, nay. Passes. Okay. Approved budget, levies approved. Other township business. This is a part of the agenda where you can make, propose resolutions or provide directions to your township supervisors on what you think or what we all think should be the priorities of the township. If there's any issues out there that they're not aware of, now's the time to bring them up. If you have a pothole in front of your yard that needs fixing, Bill's here. You know.
If your mailbox got taken over, I'm sure.
If you need a limb chopped off so you can see the sign, Bill's here. I don't know who else is here. Yes,
I'd like the floor, please.
yes.
Joel Banks.
You have a proposal or?
Yeah.
Joel Minks is going to present.
I would just like to address how we compensate board members, planning commission people that put an amazing amount of time into these jobs. I speak from past experience. I was on the planning commission many years ago when the biggest issue was no trailer houses in the township. That was kind of the top of the heap. But it's pretty much a thankless job that these people do. Very seldom do they get an attaboy, but very often they get telephone calls. And of course, telephone calls are taken on their time. And there's some history of threatening telephone calls because a decision was made that some of the residents didn't like. And you know, that's normal, but to take it to the point where there's threats, that's kind of overboard. Guys should be able to discuss things. We basically look at how much money per meeting these people get. That doesn't take into account the homework that's required to make the decisions that are being made. Just like the 10-year comprehensive plan, I know in the past, the planning commission put many hours into it because it's such a huge item. What direction do you want the township to go? It's not something you decide in a half an hour. There's much research, and I know that new board members, planning commission, same thing. They need to have an idea what's in the zoning ordinance and other ordinances that we have. You can't go into a meeting cold. In the building ordinance, I mean, all these things are stacks of paper. And the reason that's done is to eliminate legal loopholes when a developer comes in. You want everything written down. This is how things are done. Another thing that has happened in the last few years now is there's been a lot of work, and Doug is part of this, is creating written policies so that when you get new board members, it's not like, well, what do I need to know? There's now written policies that you can hand off to the next guy. He can read the policies. Now he's got a starting place to know how to ask the right questions. Just a little bit of background from other townships here. Borgholm Township pays their supervisors $150 a meeting, and that's their regular monthly meeting. And then if they do other meetings such as, I know we have people on Princeton Planning Commission, we have people on the fire department. So we have people, our people go to these different meetings. So we're not isolating our information. Borgholm, like I said, $150 per meeting, and they get $20 per hour for their over and above meetings, any other meetings. Milo Township, $140 a meeting and $25 an hour on over and above meetings. Bogus Township, $125 an hour, and over and above meetings are $60 if it's under 2 hours, or $125 an hour, or $125 if that particular meeting goes over 2 hours. And I believe our guys are at $55 a month. So our people are in the cellar. And another thing to point out, Borgholm, Milo, and Bogus, they don't do any of their own zoning. It's all Mille Lacs County zoning. So their jobs are immensely simpler than what we put our guys through, just because of we doing all our own zoning and stuff. So there's a much huger knowledge base that's needed. Now, in the past election, we had 2 guys on the ballot, and we had 2 write-ins, and all 4 of those men had been on the board before. So what I'm saying is we're not enticing new people to jump up and join these committees. Same thing with Planning Commission. If there's 2 openings, usually you get about 2 candidates. So we're not enticing fresh blood to come in. Blood's probably not a good word to use, because I think some of the guys lose some blood on these jobs. But taking all this into consideration, I think our compensation has got to go up, because you can't expect people, especially in this day and age of how busy people are, to have them work for nothing. I mean, this is one way that you show your appreciation, even if you don't say that's a good job. So I think we have to get more fair on our compensation. So at this time, I'm going to make a motion that we raise the supervisor and planning commission pay to $140 per meeting and $25 per hour for over and above, being this is approximately the average of the other 3 townships that I mentioned. So that is my motion.
Plus what?
$140 per meeting plus $25 per hour on the over and above meetings, such as city planning commission, fire board, stuff like that, any appointed duties.
Everybody understand that motion? I'll leave it here. Motion is to increase the compensation to the supervisors to $140 per meeting and $25 per hour for over and above meetings. Any?
Supervisor and planning.
Oh, and planning commission?
And planning commission.
And planning commission. Cool. All right. Any, I'm assuming he made the motion, so I need a second for the motion. Second, what's your name?
George Lund.
George Lund makes a second for the motion. Motion is up for discussion. Any discussion on the motion?
Can I speak to that?
Yes,
This would be a budget matter.
it is a budget matter, but it will be a binding resolution from this meeting. And it will go in effect after this meeting because it is the direction of the township membership. It's about the only resolution around that doesn't have to go to supervisors, because the supervisors, even though they can vote or make a motion at their board, are in conflict of interest. So in this case, this would be a binding resolution, and you would have to adjust your budget accordingly or your fee schedule to compensate. Yes?
Dan Miller, clarification on the motion. Currently, right now, the township for your liaisons, whether it be Gene Stokel, myself, not sure who else is on different liaisons, you're giving them 55 a meeting, or that you're reducing the pay to $25 per meeting now?
That's, well, his resolution would reduce it, he said $25 per hour. So
Just clarification, I honestly don't give a damn, I don't care what you think.
Well, that's what he, I don't think it's reducing. If you guys are paid set 55 for associated meetings, not the supervisory meeting, that meeting's less than an hour, I guess it would be a reduction.
Can I amend my motion?
Again, and then we have to, a second.
We'll make it $140 per meeting and remain with the $55 per meeting for liaison.
Okay, the motion's been made to amend the original motion to adjust the associated meeting fee to $55 a meeting. Is the second agreeable to that? He is agreeable? So that's the motion now. The motion is to pay them $140 for their main supervisor meetings and planning commission meetings, and $55 for associated auxiliary meetings. Any discussion?
Respectfully, I'll abstain from the vote again. Same with myself.
Yes. Yeah, any, since there's no discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, say nay. All those on the record who want to abstain, can raise their hand and I'll try to get your name. Those abstaining were, say your name,
Carol Whitcomb?
Thomas Dubin. Dan Miller.
Kathy Stover. Cindy McDonald.
And Bill Whitcomb.
and Bill Whitcomb. Okay. Motion passes. Any other township business? Yes, sir. Well, this is the open discussion, yes, but, yep.
Good, thanks.
Your name?
Mark, last name Bubin.
And Mark.
Yep. My name is Mark Bubin. Last time I was at one of these meetings, it was kind of like a Wild West show, so it's kind of nice to not see it like it was then. This is October of 2019. I came by because I've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, a lot of things that happened in my life since that time, 2019. A lot of things have come up. I found out a lot of things. And this is in regards to, as most of you know, my now ex-wife, previous clerk treasurer. I was kind of left in the dark for 14 and a half plus years of what her job entailed. Nothing was ever shared with me till the end, when a lot of the hoopla, I called it, started with new board members getting elected in. They wanted to know information about what was going on in the township. For some reason, this stuff was protected, password protected, hidden from these new board members. And my hats are off to all of these people on the board now. They've been fighting an uphill battle since that last regime, I'll call it. And I think just watching tonight again, they're doing an outstanding job. They are trying to make amends. The road and stuff up there and monies and stuff to do roads, I mean, I think it's great, but other issues I have are issues that took place during that previous regime, shall we say, that I have been pushing with people to have them addressed. I have talked to law enforcement to address these issues. But what happens is these issues need to be brought forward at the township level first. They have to be brought forward. Tom, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Mr. Duden has been doing a lot of work. Behind the scenes, he has taken a brunt of a lot of this, harassment, threats, I can even call it. I myself take that times 10. I've been under surveillance. I've been watched with hidden cameras. I've had mail stolen for the last year and a half. I've had hidden listening devices placed on my property, in my house, all because of what? What went on at this township? A lot. And I know there's people in this room that are friends of individuals. I know they share information. They also do the Facebook cowboy thing, I call it. You know, you need to grow up because these issues need to be addressed. Look back in news. Vermilion Township in Minnesota. Anybody familiar with that story? How about Armstrong, Iowa? Are we familiar with that story at all? What took place there? If you can see where I'm going with this, Google it, read it, see what happened. Because it's an issue here. It needs to be addressed. Township residents, you need to know what took place during that time frame. I know what took place because you talk about roads. Yep, I know what didn't get done here. Plowing, I know what didn't get done. That person counted on my 3 boys to plow all the roads in the township, even though they held full-time jobs, they went to college, and if they couldn't make it to plow the roads, well, let's come up with an excuse. I plowed roads once for them, just to bail their ass out. Never did it again. I'm not doing it again. And it's just, there is so much to this story that needs to be revealed. And I'm not going to go into specifics, but I have specifics. This individual took time to hide a lot of things. You guys did an audit, October, November, 19, I believe, somewhere in there. Didn't come up with much. You know why? Because you didn't have much. You said at that meeting in October, if I remember right, and listening to another individual setting up on his high horse. If you guys find something, I will pay for it out of my pocket. Discrepancies. Well, the mistake that was made there, as I see it, my opinion only, the township used the same audit firm. They didn't do what they said they were going to do. They said they were going to hire another firm and do a detail, further detail. That never happened. So, from me following it, I found out that they looked at 25 items. When I watched that presentation on the internet, I laughed. They looked at 25 items that, to me, were a joke. They couldn't find anything. It was nothing. Absolutely nothing. You need to see the real story. You need to know what happens. People need to hold these individuals accountable for what took place. And that would mean come forward, press the township, and I'm not here to put the township on the spot. Like I said, I think the world of these individuals, what they're doing and what they're trying to recover from the past, but something needs to be done. They need to be brought up and questioned. But it needs to come from the township folks and the township board itself. I question how confidential information from attorneys made it to some of these individuals. I know how. I'll tell you right now I know how. I'm not going to say, but I will reveal it very soon. But this is the kind of stuff that went on behind the scenes. And I was in the process, of course, of divorce because of this, and another individual, and I started cleaning out my house to get ready to move. I had to sell it after building it 20-some years ago. I had to sell it because of this. Financially, yeah. Can I blame a lot of my financial part from the township? Hell yes, because of what happened. How is it a township can pay a part-time individual full medical benefits, pay what they paid that individual an hourly rate, give that person such responsibility? And I'll tell you what, it was all for attention. Attention. And that's exactly what it was. The other side of the coin, that attention led to other things. And if you think about it, you know what I'm talking about. And whether it goes on to this day, I could care less. I'm done. I look at it this way. Garbage comes every Tuesday for me. I took the trash out long ago. But you know what? It doesn't take care of this problem. These guys are still fighting an uphill battle, trying to explain dollars to fix roads when it shouldn't have been that. They should have been spending monies on roads. They should have been doing a lot of things. Instead of sitting up on a high horse and bullshitting everybody, do your job. If not, find somebody that will do it. But, like I said, it's a lot of things happen. I know a lot of things. I found out a lot of things, and I will share them because it's going to become relevant. It's, you know, you guys need to know what goes on. Thomas knows some of this stuff. I know what he's went through. I personally, I've caught many of these individuals surveillancing my house. I know who hired them. I know why they were there. Because they wanted what I found. Were they ever going to find it? Tell them. Because I knew it was important. And to this day, they still want it. And I know with this conversation, whether it's being streamed live or whatever is going to get to them, I don't care. Because these two individuals wrecked my life. They wrecked me financially. And to me, there's a price you're going to pay for that. But I'm saying I need your help. Because to force it any farther, I need township help, residents' help, to be upset about what went on at that time and how much money is unaccounted for. Where'd it go? Where did all these funds go? What about all these transactions? You know, explain. You have to explain. Yes?
We talked about an audit.
Yeah.
We approved last year for you guys to take that audit further. We never heard anything. And that audit should have shown some of what he's talking about.
You know, I don't know what they do as far as the audit. It just actually appalled me that they stuck with the same audit firm. And I'm not belittling that audit firm by any means, but from the conversation in October, they were adamant about getting a more detailed audit. And the comment was made, if you find something, I will pay whatever that is out of my pocket.
Okay, but if you're here talking to us, what, if the county, I take it you've spoken to the county attorney?
I'm not at the county attorney yet because I have to get some type of.
We have to get permission to move forward.
We have to have permission to move forward.
The sheriff's department will not work without a direction from the township. State auditor will not work without a direction from the county sheriff.
Well, then that's what we need to do then.
But
We already know, we know there's something.
there has been something, there is something, and
we were hoping
right
the
now,
audit was gonna find that.
Thomas knows right now, there is enough. I threw the township a bone a while back. Nothing was done. You want to do something, you know, and I'm not holding judgment against anybody. I threw them a bone. Here's something you can do. You want to get the ball rolling? Right now, take this bone and run with it.
We need to.
And the next one came up, and Thomas has been involved. And, yeah, something needs to be done.
Yes.
Because as residents, I mean, I never said I'm not a resident. But for what I've dealt with over the years and what I've been through, there's a lot. This is just not even icing on the cake. It's more than that. It's
Okay,
so
so
much
do
more.
we need a motion then? What do we need?
Well, I have a question. How much is this one person's vindication for their own losses as opposed to one minute please, to the proof and the real validation of the township's own violations? You know what I'm saying? I mean, is it his battle or is it truly about the township here?
Okay, first of all, this is not a personal vindictive thing for me.
You also knew about it for many years, and it's
No,
kind of unsettling.
you missed the point.
Let me finish.
I didn't know about these
Unsettling
actions.
that you are bringing up after the divorce and the losses of your finances, and I can understand.
But you gotta understand, a squirrel, they'll go around the 100-acre yard and they'll bury a nut here and there. You know how long it took me to dig out things hidden in closets, hidden in
But your wife is
rafters?
still getting the compensation and the benefits of this township with her salary and her benefits, and you were
Up
a
until what
recipient,
point?
you were a
Up
recipient
until
of
what
that for
point?
many years. And so I just want to make sure that the township is very cautious, in my view, that we make sure this is a separate thing from Mr. Lovett's issues. That's very dangerous territory.
Thomas, did I give you anything?
Yes.
Could it be of value?
Oh, yes.
Okay, what do you think?
You want me to tell them what I received?
Let me jump ahead here first.
I'll jump in a little bit, because I've been through these before, different government agencies, and the thing is, if you're gonna do the audit, you follow the money. You go to the bank and get every check that was written in those 4 years, and you figure out what it was spent on. If it wasn't spent on, I mean, where did that $145,000 worth of gravel actually go?
Why hasn't anybody looked into this thing?
You know?
Well, we were supposed to, that was part of what we approved last year.
What happened to the
Yeah, so what happened to the
Look at
audit?
the beginning balance and the ending balance, because you can hide a lot of stuff in there. If you look at the actual checks, which is what I had to do at the school board, that's where you find out where everything went and.
I have the receipts for the gravel. The gravel isn't the issue. The only thing with the gravel was that it was misrepresented as road repair. They had two separate accounts. They had gravel and road repair. And it made it look like you were only doing a certain amount of gravel and the rest was road repair, but it was really all gravel. So I got the receipts that it did actually go to gravel. But I didn't look at checks. I'm just looking at invoices. I don't know. I mean,
Yes, but the audit that we voted on a year ago, right, to continue to go further, 2 years ago.
We authorized a forensic analysis of the computer.
Right. Did we ever get a conclusion from that?
How much stuff did you find in the computers?
I guess from what I've heard, and this is just very lately, one of the forensic auditors said, where is the hard drives that were connected to this computer at one time? Well, we don't know. Well, then, one of the persons in question here signed a statement saying there was no longer.
A witness statement signed in front of law enforcement?
Yes.
Signed in front of
And
Dave
Dan,
Persing.
and Greg Anderson?
Dave Persing.
Great person, I've got it right here.
Dave Persing.
But that person no longer had anything that belonged to the township.
Okay.
Well, where are them hard drives?
Okay, of that letter, let's go, that was my next subject. Of that letter, do you remember the content of the questions? Carlos, you probably have it, I have it in my folder.
Yep.
One of them was, do you have any recordings?
Go right through it. It says, any information to access programs within the computer. Passcode to connect, signed off. Passwords, signed off. Location retrieval process to obtain audio tapes, it says file cabinet and meeting room. backup with password done, access information to the cameras system and any manuals. It said see notes. List of all usernames and passcodes. Yep, got that. Any existing charges for any other stores, signed off. Are all the township records kept at the township building? Yes. Has anything been scanned or kept on an external hard drive cloud? If yes, how accessed? No. Who does our IT service? Nothing current. Who does our printer repair service? Who's the contact? It says MESI. Do you have a township phone? No. Any and all electronic, paper, or hard copy materials owned or received by the township? No additional materials. And everything was signed off on 10/15/19.
Who was it signed up?
It was signed off by county in presence of Greg Anderson, Dave Persing, Dan Whitcomb, and Deputy, I don't read that one, so.
So
I just
are
remember when.
are we skirting the issue right now that that is not the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, isn't that enough then to take that and go forward?
Should we be investigating that?
Well, no, it's not an investigation. If you have knowledge that some of that stuff that she signed off, that she still has possession of, or somebody else has possession of, that's a felony, and you just need to file the charges.
So
You
we,
can file them at the FBI, or you can file them at State Patrol, or you can file them at the Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff won't help you, you go to State Patrol. State Patrol won't help you, have a right to walk into the Federal Bureau of Information and have the charges issued there by the, and that's the process.
So if we
But you have
wanted-
to have actual evidence and knowledge that those materials were never turned over and they were someplace else and they do still exist.
so we need a motion tonight for the township to continue to pursue this.
You can make a motion that the township should pursue recovering township records and data that
Belong to the
you
township.
have to know where it is though.
And what's the legal cost from our
Should not, well, shouldn't be any legal cost if you file a complaint, it's in the hands of the other agencies to just be aware of, the sheriff in this county has this philosophy so that enforcing laws is discretionary. I've been told that several times from him, ever since this started, so. You know, so if you go through him, you might want to go a little bit higher, that's all.
Well, I'll just tell you folks a little bit of history on this and how it got to this point. I was at a crossroad to contact the FBI or go through the proper steps that I thought at the time to the township, through their attorneys. I knew they had a forensic and another investigation going on. Because as I was cleaning, and I kept finding this stuff, and it kept flagging me. A person protects a lot of things for a reason, and I know why now, because like I said, I'm divorced, been divorced from her for a while. I don't stand nothing to gain from this, but to me is what happened at this township and what caused all this heartache and arguments and all these meetings in the past. It's just, it has to end, and it seems like it's settled down now, which is good to see, but it needs to be addressed because it was wrong.
And you have how many children that are part of the law enforcement?
I have 3 children,
How many are in the law enforcement?
3 children that are in the law enforcement.
And is that something that they will put a buffer around their mother if they love?
No, I've already addressed that. It was one of the reasons why once I discovered these things, I held off because a comment came from her, I won't refer to her as anything else. What are your children going to think and what's going to happen to them? Well, I had some nice discussions with my sons and we took care of that. They didn't care and they still don't to this day. So,
If something goes wrong and they don't represent the truth, then they would lose their job, correct?
I can't answer that because I don't know.
If they're aware of a felony crime it could affect their license.
And as far as I know, they don't nothing. I've kept everything away from them between their mother and I, and that's just the way it is.
So this puts your whole family in a very
I-
precarious
yeah.
position. And-
She put my whole family in a turmoil,
Well, this is
roughly
not very
16 years
possible.
ago when she started here.
I'm just saying that, again, that goes back to the protection for the township, because they are law enforcement that represent us. Something to consider.
I personally think this needs to be addressed because we're still getting bombarded from some of these individuals who are on the past board, and it's not gonna stop until some of this stuff comes to a head.
I agree, I just think there needs to be full disclosure on the position of what we are addressing. I think it's important.
Like I said, I'm not testifying to any of this. I will sit down, I will present any and all information, items I might have. I'm not part of the township. And if the township as a whole wants to go together and put this issue, because this stuff was a big issue back when I came to the meeting. I mean, I know, I heard the hooplas, the threats and all this stuff, and once I found things, all of a sudden I was the brunt of the threats. I laughed. I said, bring it on.
You also threatened the board when your wife left, when your wife showed.
Well, you know what?
leave
Let me
and
go back to that night. Thomas knows. I told him the story why I came that night. My ex-wife cheered me to go to this meeting. Teach them, son of a bitch, is a lesson, Mark. Okay? Another individual thought I was going to do the same thing when I got there. He sat up front with Jared. I went. I didn't go for this. I'd never been to a board meeting. I wanted to see what was going on. Yeah, I was negative that night. That's all an act. I found out what was going on. Oh, I remember you that night. Trust me, I remember. You know, Tom and I talked about this. He says, "Well, the night you were here, how do you act?" Yeah. But I did it because another individual sitting up topside. I want to wipe his smug air and look off his goddamn face, to be quite frank. Because you know what? That needs to be done in one way, shape, or form as far as a duo, because I know what went on. The problem started way back when with her, when she went on a witch hunt for the previous clerk. I have all the documents, I'll say that right now. I found all of them. When she was forcing the previous clerk out. And she did what she had to do to get it done. So, you know, that's neither here nor there. That doesn't even compare to the other things. But if you guys want to proceed and go, that's your thing. You talk to me. I'm open.
Well, we need to kind of move on and wrap things up for tonight. Either we get a motion from members of the township, or we leave it in the hands of the township to deal with.
I'm not exactly clear on what the motion should sound.
I don't know what it would be either. I have filed charges in this issue myself, and had big discussions with the county attorney on it. And he's given me some statutes that they can move forward on, but he hasn't.
He didn't have enough information.
Well, some of the people that were supposed to come forward and be witnesses chose not to testify or become witnesses. So, I mean, unless people want to talk and bring it out, or they have actual evidence in their hands that they can turn over, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Then
Unless
you should
you
turn it
know,
over.
does
If
he
it's
know
public
the
record,
words?
you need to turn it
For what it's
over.
worth, I would say, I'm not part of the township.
It doesn't matter.
Contact the
If you're a
FBI.
citizen, if there's a crime committed.
Contact the FBI, initiate the investigation.
I mean, I don't know what you have. I heard you had a hard drive. If you have the hard drive,
Well,
then
then
you
he's
need
in
to turn it over to the
possession of stolen
FBI. It doesn't mean there's anything on the hard
That's not
drive.
it, we've just discussed.
Could just be
He's
a
got a
hard
hard drive.
Huh?
If he's got a hard drive, he's got township property.
Yes.
Put the showboat game.
And
right
he
in.
needs to turn it in.
It needs to be.
I mean, I was at that October meeting, you were $102 bill there, and you just reiterated that was an app. How do we know that this isn't an app? I mean, I'm just, you know.
Well, if you have hard
If you
drive,
have
or you had hard
township
records,
property,
you need to
that's
turn
not
them
yours.
into
You
the
need to turn
sheriff
that over to
or the
law.
FBI, That's the only way this is gonna move
Tell you
forward.
what, initiate the investigation. Tell them, come and see me.
Investigation.
Were you not already
initiated by
instructed by our
several
township
people.
attorney to go talk to Mille Lacs County?
Pardon me?
Were you not already instructed by our township attorney to go talk to Mille Lacs County?
No, I took that upon myself.
Was he instructed by our township
No.
attorney to go talk to Mille Lacs County?
To the sheriff's department.
Yes.
Sheriff's department is doing nothing without.
I mean, one way you can proceed is, if he doesn't want to hand it over, take the serial numbers off the hard drive, use those serial numbers to figure out that the township actually bought this hard drive, because it's got to be checked.
Well, first of all, I hear, you guys are assuming I have hard drives.
I don't know what you got. That's-
You're going off from what? Hearsay, Mr. Hiller? Really?
So all this is hearsay right now, because you're saying you have it, but you're not producing it. So produce it.
So we're making a motion based on no evidence that we see
Have you-
or have documented at all.
Have you seen evidence?
Yes. Currently, can I say those words?
You can say whatever you'd like.
Currently, our township attorney is in charge, is in possession of missing tapes, some safe keys, several other big ticket items. But they
I'd
are
like
in
to see
possession
this.
of our township attorney.
So it's not like we make a motion, we start acting on this legal action and Mr. Waller can take off. I mean, he would be
Any
held
officer
responsible
of
for
the
that.
township who has information of viable evidence has an obligation to file a complaint and recover that information. If they don't choose to do that, and I'm talking about the 5 supervisors here, then it's a new issue. I've already tried to file complaints on some of this stuff on behalf of some previous supervisors, and it got nowhere. Because I've been through this before in Princeton School Board. And, you know, I walk up there and I file the complaint and I sign the complaint. And I tell them why I need to recover. And then they go out and get a judge to sign it and they get the search warrants and they recover the information. The worst thing you can do is take possession of it yourself, because the county attorney says, well, they've lost chain of custody. In my case, the community ed director came in and dumped $40,000 worth of merchandise in the hallway. And because he did that, and the school district inventoried it, they lost chain of custody.
Okay, so township attorney has some documentation. And he can't do anything?
He cannot do anything because we need to go to the county sheriff. The county sheriff won't do anything without the direction of the township board. The state will not come in unless they have a county attorney.
Okay, so what's it gonna
All
take?
evidence that we brought forth.
Is that
So
a
let's just
motion?
make a motion. Just, no?
Yes,
Mark, one of the concerns that was voiced by the attorney and the state office was when did you recover that stuff? Were you still married at the time, or was it after your divorce?
It was,
It was after the divorce.
I guess officially, yeah, I'm still married. And like I said, I was left high and dry to clean the house, and that's when I started cleaning the house. Keep in mind, my cameras showed constant visits to my house by her while I was at work. I know what she was there for, and I know what the constant harassment was about. Like I said, that's neither here nor there. I mean, that's happened to me personally, and but it was in regards to this stuff that was so important to keep hidden. And I've kept this a long time, this in teen, I've talked to Thomas, and we've done this on and on. It's been going on forever. Tonight, I wanted to come out. You guys decide if you want to do anything. If not,
Well, it sounds like a bunch of games. I don't understand.
Just let
Illegal
people
activity is
understand.
taking place. Why won't our
Actually,
own
if you
county
can-
attorney do something?
if the county attorney, our attorney has proven that whatever he has is actually property of the township, you can do something regardless of whether they were married or not. But that's my legal advice to you, but I mean, Again, it comes down to discretionary enforcement. You know, we hear that a lot these days. It's okay to burn down 1,500 businesses.
My 2 cents worth as a government entity, I think you take it the next step up, bypass county, go to federal.
All right.
That's just my opinion.
Hearing no motion.
Whoa.
Yes. I want a motion, or we're gonna.
No, Doug says not to have a motion.
Can the township,
Well, if there is no motion, we have no other business. All right?
can the township make a motion to direct the county attorney to go to the, or is the township attorney to go to the next level? How simple would that be? Just make a motion and.
I don't know if you have enough
Direct the county
information. I
attorney
don't know
to
if we
take
have
it to the
enough
next
evidence
level.
actually.
Why are we stalled here? I mean, if there's something here, you guys need to take it. Inaction will get you nowhere. Nowhere. Inaction will get you nowhere.
We can't go forward.
Somebody, there's a board member, so the township has to do something if you're gonna get anywhere.
Any more discussion on this?
I would make the motion that Tom Duda and the township attorney reach out to Mille Lacs County and check the validation of this and look into this matter.
All right, motion's been made to direct Tom Duden, supervisor, and the county attorney,
No, township attorney.
to proceed to the county attorney
Check the validation of this, or
to validate this evidence.
I second that motion.
Second by Joe. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against, nay. Passes. Any other business? Any other business? Not? Motion to adjourn? Yes,
I have something to read.
okay. Nancy Moon.
Nancy Moon. The citizens of this township were lied to for years about budgets and roads. Our roads were terribly maintained, and although tons of money were spent on
Give
gravel.
her the mic. We can't hear you, Nancy.
The citizens of the township, can you hear me? Were lied
There.
to for years on budgets and roads. Our roads were terribly maintained, and although tons of money was spent on gravel in 3 years, on almost a mile of high used roads, we received only 75 cubic yards of gravel. Terrible grading was done before Bill Wickham took over the roads. Our township was left in a terrible financial state. As Greg Anderson said, they had well-earned reserve. However, we now know that there was money that should have been used for the paved township roads, that they didn't. Instead, they lied about how little the gravel cost and only took care of the gravel roads. They tried to make it appear like they were doing such a great job, and the cash reserve was increasing because of that. We know better now. We have left our township severely underfunded by stagnation of the levy. Not to mention giving thousands of dollars in donations on neglecting our paved township roads for years. Then, at last year's meeting, Mrs. Cussler now wanted to assist people who were paying for the roads to be maintained while her husband was on the board, and they were intentionally neglecting them. Not to mention that the city assessments are due to curb sewer and water costs, not just the roads as the way township roads are structured. Furthermore, they purchase incorrect and underpowered equipment that even if able to be used would take decades to just get the return on investment rather than take care of the roads like the law requires. Instead, they try to pit residents against each other rather than being responsible and addressing needs and making the correct decisions. If anyone came forward, they were already attacked, demeaned by Greg. Eventually, by electing people outside of these corrupt historical supervisors, we have seen the truth of this neglect and malfeasance. Without Bill working to put all this information together over the past 2 years to improve service and get a plan in place to address neglect and future needs, this township would be facing much more serious issues. We all know that we need to step up and address the mess this township has left and by Greg Anderson. We can't continue to think we can keep the levy the way it was left 14 years ago without lying to ourselves.
Do you have a motion to make or just a statement? Just a statement. Thank you. Any other business? Any other business? Is there a motion to adjourn? No?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second.
Motion made by Carol.
Carol.
Adjourn.
Which-
Doesn't require a second.
Okay.
Meeting is adjourned.
I won't be able to sleep tonight now.